Hey, good evening, everybody. This is Matt Shea broadcasting live here from Olympia, Washington, following a pretty brutal last 24 hours. We were actually up until 1 o'clock last night voting, and a few bills that I need to update you on. I do want to start, though, on a positive note. Senate Bill 6102, which dealt with reproductive acts, or reproductive parity, reproductive right protection in a business, which was all really euphemisms for forcing businesses to provide abortion coverage, that was killed in committee. But unfortunately, in the last 24 hours, there have been some bills that have happened and passed off the floor of the House that are just, they're very troubling indeed. For those of you that are praying out there, please continue to pray for us on the floor of the House of Representatives. It's been very tough. So I'm going to start first with last night. Up until 1:30 is when I got home, but we were on the floor until about 1 o'clock in the morning, and we had to vote on our Senate Bill 6037, which dealt with paid surrogacy, or as some have colloquially called it, rent-a-womb, literally allowing the commercialization of childbirth. Now, there have been horror stories that have come out of Thailand and other places about this practice. A lot of places in Europe have banned this practice. Well, in Washington State last night, the legislature is going to allow it to happen, and it's headed to the governor's desk. What does this mean? Well, we offered a ton of different amendments that would have put more protections in place for mothers, and in particular, requiring that all the parties of these surrogacy contracts would be citizens of the United States, that the mother and the intended parents would be residents of Washington State, so that we can make sure that abuse is not happening. But unfortunately, the Democrats once again failed to take even a single amendment. And most shockingly, one of the amendments that we offered required the release of medical records of both the intended parents and the surrogate to the child to make sure that the child could have a full genetic and medical history. They denied even that. So at the end of the debate, and I got to tell you something, if you go back in history and you look at novels like A Handmaid's Tale and some of these other ones that I've heard about, people have been telling me about over the last 24 hours, they really kind of tell the story of this, that these types of legislation prey on women that are hurting, that are having financial problems, and it's just unbelievable that we're talking about this in today's day and age. But most importantly, at the end of the debate last night, we did a very rare procedural move. I haven't seen it done in 10 years. We demanded an oral roll call on the floor of the House, so every individual member would have to say what their vote was on this horrific bill, Senate Bill 6037. To our credit, every Republican voted no on that bill, but again, it's headed to the governor's desk. Then this morning, after negotiations last night and some agreement, and then no agreement this morning, and then some more agreement, and then no agreement again, they ran out something called the conversion therapy bill. And this essentially would ban the practice of Christian counselors who are practicing according to the tenets of their faith, even though they're operating under the standard of care of licensed counselors. They would not be able to practice according to the tenets of their faith. I offered several amendments on this. They took one. That was it. And so, unfortunately, in Washington State, once more, Christianity is being persecuted and I believe driven underground with these types of legislation. And I said as much on the floor that we should be able to, if I'm a Catholic counselor, if I'm a Protestant counselor, I should be able to practice according to the tenets of my faith, as long as they're not violating the standards of care. And once again, this bill passed off the floor of the House, and that's going to be headed to the governor's desk as well. Then lastly, and probably most troubling, Senate Bill 6219. And by the way, the conversion therapy bill, for those of you that are keeping track of this, was 5722. Okay, Abortion for all, Senate Bill 6219. This would mandate abortion coverage in Washington state. We offered 3 amendments. One amendment, which would have acknowledged the Supreme Court decisions on this, acknowledged Article 1, Section 11 of the Washington State Constitution, which says there's an absolute freedom of tolerance, or freedom of conscience, in all matters of religious sentiment. And then also Article 26, which says that there shall be perfect toleration of religious sentiment. This amendment would have allowed conscientious objection to participate in these insurance plans that would be mandated to cover abortion services. They denied the amendment, and it actually failed on the floor 49-49. And for those of you that don't understand the parliamentary stuff there, if an amendment fails 49-49 or ties 49-49, it fails, so then it doesn't pass. And we were astonished that they didn't take the amendment. But then we offered 2 more amendments. One amendment to prevent abortions based on the sex of the baby. In other words, what's happening in China right now, where most female babies are being aborted, sometimes infanticide actually occurs in China, but we offered that amendment. They didn't take it. They said it was the right of the woman to choose, and we said, well, wait, we're protecting women with this, and this is eugenics, where you are killing a baby based on the sex. They still didn't take the amendment. On top of that, we offered an amendment to ban abortion based on the fact that the baby might have Down syndrome, and they denied that one as well. So I want you to understand what happened today. 6219 passed off the floor of the House. I believe all Republicans voted no. But in Washington State now, there's going to be mandatory coverage for these things where they will allow people to abort a baby based on the gender or based on the fact that they have Down syndrome. Iceland is actually bragging about this, that they're eradicating Down syndrome. Well, the way they're doing that is by aborting the babies. Folks, I got to tell you something. The most troubling 24 hours in the 10 years I have been in Olympia, just unreal that this has been happening. Unreal this has been happening. And so I want everybody out there to know that your prayers are greatly appreciated. We're keeping up the fight. We're battling into the wee hours of the morning for the unborn and those that can't stand up for themselves. But this has been a very, very tense time. And also, I think this is a dress rehearsal for next year if the Democrats remain in the majority of what we can expect to happen. These types of radical social policies that deny religious liberty, that deny the sanctity of human life, and that deny the Christian faith outside the 4 walls of the church. So what I want everybody out there right now to do is just take a moment and realize that we should not be listening to the mainstream media tell us what's important to distract us from the things that are occurring down here. I've had a lot of supporters recently getting distracted by the mainstream media, throwing out fake news, not accurately reporting on several things, and then coming back and not reporting on these big policy changes that are happening in Olympia. And they're doing that intentionally to keep you in the dark. That's why I'm doing these updates. And that's why I'm going to continue doing these updates, so you can stay informed and realize that we need to be our own media. We need to get out this information as far and wide as possible. Because what we're really talking about are fundamental principles that we hold dear here in Washington State. And I'm telling you, for a lot of people, this is another reason that people are pushing the state of liberty in Eastern Washington, because these policies do not reflect the values, beliefs, traditions, culture, and heritage that I believe are foundational to Washington State, the United States of America. So I want to thank everybody very much for listening to me tonight. Keep up the fight. Be eternally vigilant. God bless all of you. And make sure, if you get a chance, to pray for us. And as you can see, I'm pretty tired, so I'm going to go hit the sack right now. God bless all of you, and good night. Hey, good evening, everybody. This is Matt Shea broadcasting live from Olympia. Another late night here in Olympia, and I got to tell you, of all 10 years I have been here in Olympia, this was by far the most interesting, jam-packed day that I have ever seen. I'll get to some of the things that have happened today, but I want to start in the morning. At noon, we honored Israel here on the first day of Purim. We honored Israel's 70th anniversary as a nation today with the Israeli Consul General. And Shlomi Kaufman showed up. There was a lot of people there to help honor him with both House and Senate resolutions. In this case, the House actually didn't do a resolution, but the House Republican caucus did. And it was, though, good to see bipartisan support of Israel today on their 70th anniversary of becoming a nation. We know it's in May, but we have a short session, so we picked today to honor them. Also, later in the day, this is the first time that we know of in modern history, so we're talking the last 50 years at least, might be the last 100 years, going back, that we, for the first time as a caucus, did not vote. We refused to vote today on a bill, Senate Bill 6199, which is essentially forced unionization of caregivers, which is unbelievable to me. We're talking at a cost of taxpayers about $14 million, and a cost to these families in Washington State of $34 million in forced union dues, essentially, or fees, that are going to go straight to SEIU. And where does it go straight from SEIU? It goes to the Democrat Party. This is one of the most egregious bills we have ever seen. And also, to shut down debate during this bill on the floor of the House was unbelievable. You've got to watch the video. Again, I think it's 6199. You've got to watch the video. They were shutting down debate continuously throughout, and then finally it got so bad that we said, okay, fine, we are not going to vote in protest to this horrific bill. So check out the video. We've been fighting hard. Then later in the evening, it was signaled to us that the Democrats had orchestrated a veto of Senate Bill 6617, the Legislative Public Records Act bill. Now, here's the interesting part about it. We have been fighting for transparency, and we are not in control as the minority party of the committee process. We're not in control of the notices that go out for hearings. The Democrats decided to do the work session on this. They went forward with it, and we were really only given the opportunity to vote yes or no on this bill. And the problem is it was a right step, because currently most records are exempt from disclosure in the legislature. It's been that way for over 40 years. It's been a continual process of the legislature to deny requests for most records. Our thought was this bill at least expands the disclosure of public records to allow lobbyist communication, something I think everybody believes in. But by the same token, we wanted to make sure we protect victims. We protect witnesses, we protect whistleblowers, people that are trying to hold government accountable at all levels. Constituents can take many forms that are coming forward in these scenarios, and we want to protect those people, because if we don't, nobody's going to come forward. We're not going to know about some of the bad things that are happening in government and have the opportunity to correct them. So we actually had introduced a bill, two of our members had earlier in the year, I believe it was House Bill 2255, that would have done exactly what I just described in a much better way and had even more transparency than Senate Bill 6617. So tonight the governor vetoed 6617, and we immediately demanded that there be a hearing on 2255, and we can move forward with what we believe is the better disclosure bill, where more records are actually disclosed to the public. So this fight is not over by any stretch of the imagination, but that happened this evening, and I wanted all of you to know about it. Lastly, I want to talk about Barker Road in Trent. Okay, we've been in discussions with the city of Spokane Valley, myself, Senator Patton, Representative McCaslin, for months on the issue of how to address the stoplight or roundabout or two-lane roundabout or flyover scenario at that intersection. Many people hate that intersection because you've got a train there, a train track there, and you've got the train lights there, and then you have really an uncontrolled intersection onto the highway. So we had been talking to constituents, been talking to business owners, and it seemed very clear to us that people were very concerned about the safety issues at that roundabout if it was a two-lane roundabout in the middle of a four-lane highway. So right now, I want you to weigh in. You tell us if you want a two-lane roundabout in the middle of a four-lane highway right there at the corner of the largest industrial park between Seattle and Minneapolis, also a school bus route. And by the way, during our town hall, we had a 40-year school bus driver call in and talk about how unsafe two-lane roundabouts are. Now, here's the caveat. If we go with a different design, like as you see at Sullivan Road, it could increase the cost between $12 and $20 million. Now, I always have to balance when we're talking about these issues. I know you do as well out there at home. Safety and cost. I got to tell you something. With all the development going on north of Trent and then south of Trent and also in Idaho, it seems like this might be a better option, even if we have to pay some more money and find some more money in the transportation budget and also maybe some local buy-in at the county and the city level to make this happen. So they're having a meeting tomorrow night on this issue. And again, we've been talking about this for months. In fact, we had a meeting this morning with one of the consultants for Spokane Valley and also with city engineer. We talked on the phone I think it was 2 weeks ago with DOT. I had some city staffers on that phone call along with myself, Representative Patton, or Representative McCaslin and Senator Patton. So we've been talking about this for a long time. And I want to clear something up. The Spokane Valley Business Association sent out a bald-faced lie earlier today and said that Representative Shea has not been working with the city of Spokane Valley. That's just simply not true. In fact, the amendment that I offered to the transportation budget, I did consult with representatives for the city of Spokane Valley on that before we dropped the amendment. So this whole thing that's being spun up by a small group of people in Spokane Valley, just not true at all. And very candidly, I'm sick and tired of feeling like, the people's voice is not being listened to in this whole process. And so I've been in contact with a few people and had a really great working relationship with the Department of Transportation and also with some of the Valley Council folks and asking that, hey, why don't we extend more public outreach for this issue? We get more public input on this roundabout that is being proposed, a two-lane roundabout in the middle of Trent, and whether maybe the citizens do want to pay more, maybe the business owners do want to pay more, or do they really want a roundabout in the middle of a four-lane highway? So weigh in on this. Let me know what your comments and your thoughts are. But it's another late night here in Olympia. We're fighting for you. We're fighting for transparency. We're fighting against corruption. And we're making sure also that we're honoring our friends. So for all of you out there, be ever vigilant in the defense of freedom and liberty and keep up the fight. This is Matt Shea. We'll see you hopefully tomorrow. And I hope it's not too late tomorrow night. But God bless you and good night here in Olympia. Hey, good afternoon, everybody. This is Matt Shea broadcasting live from Olympia with your daily update from the Capitol. This is the last day of session. It looks like we are going to get out on time for the first time since 2014. I know many of you are probably pretty happy about it. We are down here as well. I'm going to go through the good, I'm going to go through the bad, and I'm going to go through the ugly today. First, I want to start off with the good. As of right now, the carbon tax is dead. As of right now, the carbon policy bills are dead. As of right now, the capital gains income tax is dead. As of right now, the assault weapons ban, and I should say the so-called assault weapons ban, is dead. Those are some really big wins today out of Olympia. want to go next to the bad. We just passed off the House floor a budget that would increase spending by another 16% over the last biennium, and again, not prioritized according to what we believe needs to happen down here in Olympia. We are putting money in places, for example, toward SEIU, that could be spent in a lot better places that are the priorities of citizens of Washington State. This is just kind of a theme down here that they're going with today. Now let me get to the ugly. We're about to vote on here in maybe an hour, 2 hours or so, property tax relief for Washingtonians. Now that's good, except for the fact it won't take effect for a couple of years. The Republican side of the House, myself included, are pushing for immediate property tax relief this year for the citizens of Washington State, and we should settle for nothing less. We can't trust that there will be a credit to property taxes in 2020. We need that property tax relief now, and we don't need to just give it lip service through some gimmick, through some sham which is being proposed right now that we're going to be voting on in a couple hours. Now, you're going to hear the media try to spin this another way, that this is property tax relief for all citizens, but read the fine print. Again, 2020, and also you're talking about a gimmick. This doesn't look like it. Some people may even get anything back. They may just get a reduction or a credit. That's not what the citizens of Washington State need. They need property tax relief right now, and we are going to be fighting for that on the floor of the House of Representatives in the next 2 hours. Lastly, I want to just remind everybody, too, something else that we did. This was unbelievable. We had the money to fund this, but a COLA, cost of living adjustment for our teachers that have retired, they didn't take the amendment. They didn't take the amendment for 3%. Now, I'm not going to get into the fact that the Federal Reserve System is what is causing this entire need for a COLA in the first place. The fact of the matter is we had the money with the extraordinary revenue that has come into our coffers this year to fulfill a promise and get that back to our retired teachers. Just makes sense. They didn't accept it. So that's another ugly thing that's come out of this session. I want to end by just making a couple more points. First of all, I've said this before, this is a dress rehearsal for next year. All of you that think this was pretty ugly this year, it is a dress rehearsal for what the liberals in downtown Seattle want to do next year. And if you don't believe that, just go through the list of bills and understand that the ones that died this year are probably going to be reintroduced almost immediately next year. That, I think, should encourage and motivate everybody out there to continue to be ever vigilant in the fight for freedom and liberty. We need to pass this on to the next generation. I know you believe it. I know I believe it, and we're fighting for it down here. May God bless all of you. Keep up the fight. Love you all out there. And let's get together. Let's get together and make freedom happen. God bless.